This is my video update from Larnaca, Cyprus on this Friday afternoon. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, the founder and the chief of the Wagner PMCs, and the video that he put out the other day, which is all over social media, where he is standing in front of the bodies of dead Wagner soldiers. That is what Prigozhin claims, that these soldiers that he was standing over were dead Wagner soldiers. And Prigozhin, in this video, he really lashed out at the Russian military, the Ministry of Defense. He specifically called out Defense Minister Shoigu. He called out General Gerasimov, and he basically said that they are to blame for the death of these Russian Wagner soldiers, and the Russian military is a corrupt organization, and he complained about the lack of ammunition. He said that Wagner is not getting the ammunition that they need to essentially finish the job in Bakhmut. And it was a very shocking and provocative video that Prigozhin put out there. And it's all over the interwebs. It's on Telegram and Twitter. It's age restricted because it's pretty graphic. I mean, it's Prigozhin and a bunch of dead soldiers, dead bodies in back of him, and he's pointing out these dead soldiers. It's a very disturbing video. He shot it at nighttime, and he posted it on the internet, on social media. And since that video went up and went viral, we now have an announcement once again from Prigozhin saying that Wagner is going to be pulling out of Bakhmut by May 10th. They're going to be leaving Bakhmut, and the Russian military will be taking over. There are announcements, however, that Russia has appointed another commander to take over in Bakhmut and to take over Wagner. And the commander's name is... let me see if I have the name handy here. I believe Minitsev is the commander that will be taking over for Wagner, though there has been no official announcements. This is still very, very speculative as to this change in leadership, this change in Wagner and the fighting in Bakhmut. Mikhail Mizintsev, who will reportedly take over Wagner, or the Wagner operations in Bakhmut. Once again, there has not been an official statement, or at least I don't think there's been an official statement from the Ministry of Defense, though this statement may come out, or may have already come out as I'm filming this video. But it seems like it's a pretty chaotic situation that is going on with Prigozhin and with Wagner. The Ukraine military, the Ukraine supporters, the analysts pro-Ukraine, they're celebrating this. They're saying that this shows that Wagner and the Russian army is in disarray. The Collective West mainstream media is reporting that the Russian army is in disarray and on the verge of collapse. And there's just a lot of infighting and disputes between the Russian command. And there are a lot of people who are in Ukraine, a lot of officials in Ukraine, who are calling on Zaluzhny to launch his counteroffensive now. To launch the counteroffensive, to strike at Bakhmut, and push all of the Wagner Russian advances in Bakhmut, to just roll them all back. So that's pretty much a summary of what is going on with this situation. There's a lot of theories and speculations and analysis as to what's going on with Prigozhin and this video and everything that he said. A lot of people say this is a psyop and that the Russian military is in on this. And there's other analysts who are saying that the Russian Ministry of Defense is indeed holding back ammunition from Wagner, and there is trouble in infighting. Perhaps there's some jealousy with the media attention that Wagner has been getting. And there's just a lot of speculation as to what's really happening. My own opinion on this is that I believe Prigozhin needs to take a step back and go back to Moscow or St. Petersburg and take a rest. That's my opinion on this. Maybe I'm seeing things a little too simple, a little too simplistic, but I saw the video. I saw the video many, many times. And to me, if this is a psyop, then this is the greatest psyop in all of history, and Prigozhin is one of the greatest actors in all of history. I mean, you know, if there were no dead bodies, and if Prigozhin did not say that Shoigu and Gerasimov are corrupt and they're to blame for the death of these soldiers, if that wasn't in the video and it was just Prigozhin just ranting about how he has a lack of ammunition and the Russian military is not providing him with what he needs, if that was the video, then I would say, yes, this is a psyop. It's a psyop. But the fact that Prigozhin was standing over all of these fallen Wagner soldiers, and the fact that he said the Russian Ministry of Defense is corrupt and they're to blame for these deaths, and you know, Gerasimov, Shoigu, they're screwing over Wagner. I mean, that was basically what he was saying. If he did, the fact that he said all of that to me is a clear signal that this was not a psyop. I don't know. That's just my take on it. If this was a psyop, then wow, what a psyop. But I don't see how this could be some sort of theatrics when you're talking about the Minister of Defense and the commander, top general Gerasimov, and you're talking about them in this way, and you've got all of these dead soldiers just lying there. I mean, I personally think that, you know, this is the madness of war getting to Prigozhin. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a civilian. Yes, he's a billionaire. Yes, he's the founder of Wagner and all of these things, but he never served in the military. He's someone that has not fought in a war. He's on the front lines in Bakhmut, and he's probably seen horrific, terrible things that I imagine after a certain amount of time, it affects you. And my take on this is that the guy just needs to take a break. That's, I mean, maybe I'm looking at this from a very simple viewpoint, but I think the guy just needs to take a rest, because this video is not going to be looked on by Putin with approval. I imagine that the Putin government looks at a video like this, and I would imagine that the Putin government is very upset when this video went up, that they were very, very upset. Because the way the Putin government operates, everything is under control, everyone is in lockstep, and you don't see like this. You don't see stuff like this happening in the Putin government. Even before the war, during the war, stuff like this would never happen. This is very, very uncharacteristic of the way Putin has been running his government for so many years. So I don't think this is in tune with the Kremlin that I've I've been seeing operating for so many years. It just doesn't fit. And to me, the guy just needs to step back. That would be my take on it. I could be completely wrong, and maybe this is the most elaborate, greatest psyop in all of history, and it's going to bait Ukraine, the Ukraine military, into going full speed ahead into Bakhmut. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like that. I saw the video, and I don't know. I saw someone. I saw Prigozhin, who I think is very, very stressed, to say the least. Very, very stressed. And so the whole ammunition thing, the debate over ammunition, I've heard the Russian Ministry of Defense and many analysts, military analysts, say that Russia absolutely provides the ammunition that Wagner needs. But the Wagner forces, they've been using so much ammunition that it just takes time. It just takes time to get all the ammunition to Wagner, and when there's a big uptick in ammunition that's being used, the Russian Ministry of Defense, they're a couple of days behind, and they need time to get that ammunition to Wagner. It's not like a next day thing, and Wagner has been using a lot of ammo the last week, and the Russian military has to kind of play catch up to get that ammunition to Wagner. That's been the explanation that I have heard for this ammunition deficit. So anyway, that's how I see this. That's my take on it. Let me know what you think. If you've seen the video, what you think of this video, what you think of the announcement that Wagner is pulling out of Bakhmut on May 10th. We're getting conflicting news that Wagner's pulling out, but then another Russian general is moving in to take over Wagner, or the Russian military is going to take over. I don't think anyone really knows the exact situation, and so let's wait a day or two and see exactly what is happening in Bakhmut with Wagner, with the Russian military, and the situation there. So we have Prigozhin's video, which dropped. We have Prigozhin's announcement saying that he's going to step away from Bakhmut. What else do we have in the news? We have got and I really don't want to talk about this, so I'm just going to mention this very, very briefly. We have started to get some social media posts claiming that Gonzalo Lira has been taken into custody by the SBU again. I have no idea if this is true or not. I really don't want to comment on this until I have some sort of confirmation, more solid confirmation that this indeed has happened or it hasn't happened. I don't know. I really, really don't know. So I'll just leave it there. I've seen the Twitter posts, but I simply don't know. So I don't really have much to say there for now. But I promise if I do have information, then I will absolutely keep everyone informed. So we have so much crazy news today. We have the Financial Times coming out with an article connected to the drone strikes on the Kremlin, where the Financial Times is actually coming out and saying that the drone strikes on the Kremlin was not a false flag. This was in no way a false flag, and the Financial Times is hinting at the fact that this was indeed Ukraine that launched these drones towards the Kremlin. The title of the Financial Times article reads, "Military Briefing, the drone attack on the Kremlin. Subterfuge, attempted assassination, or a brazen operation to embarrass Moscow?" ? Let me read a bit of this article. because for the Financial Times to come out and pretty much say that this was not a false flag and most likely Ukraine was behind it, I believe puts to rest the theory that Russia did this, or that Russia was going to be using this to launch some sort of massive strike against the Zelensky regime, or Kiev, or something like that. I think the Financial Times puts all of this speculation to bed, and it pretty much admits that this was Ukraine, and this was no false flag or anything like that. So the Financial Times, they are saying that the two small drones with their limited payloads had almost zero chance of killing Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is well known for not sleeping in his official Kremlin offices. But if they were operated by Ukraine or agents of Kiev, their journey is the most serious penetration of Russia's and Moscow's supposedly secure airspace since German teenager Matthias Rust landed a small plane near the adjacent Red Square in 1987. That has prompted hesitation among some experts over declaring this a false flag conducted by Russia, potentially aimed at justifying a new escalation in Ukraine. It would be a significant risk, they argued, for Putin to imply that its military prowess is misplaced, or that one of the most protected sites in the country is vulnerable. Exactly. For this to have been a false flag, it would mean that the Putin government would be willing to embarrass itself. The Putin government would be willing to create a false flag, which would show that the Putin government is not able to prevent drones from hitting the Kremlin. It doesn't make any sense at all. And if this was a false flag, then why would Ukraine put out a postage stamp celebrating the drones hitting the Kremlin? Why would they celebrate a Russian false flag, which the Russians would later use to strike at Kiev? It doesn't make any sense. And that's what the Financial Times is saying as well. So according to the Financial Times, what happened? Video posted online and verified by the Financial Times showed two drones flying towards the Kremlin about 16 minutes apart in the early hours of Wednesday morning. The first drone flew from the west and was filmed exploding into the dome of the Senate Palace inside the Kremlin walls at 2:27 a.m. local time, according to the clock tower in the video. The second flew from the east at 2:43 a.m., exploding near a flagpole on top of the same dome, displaying a Russian tricolor. Social media footage showed two people climbing the burning dome when the second attack occurred. Lieutenant General Scott Berrier, director of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, said on Thursday the drones did not appear to be the size of weapons that would do significant damage to the Kremlin. Based on photos and videos he had seen, Berrier said the drones potentially required the controller to be within relatively close line of sight. So I said this in my video update when the drones hit the Kremlin. I said most likely this was done by some people, some entity that is inside of Russia, close to Moscow. That's how it looked to me, and this lieutenant general is also saying the same thing. So according to the Financial Times, how was this done? If it was a Ukrainian operation to reach one of the most heavily defended cities in the world and then hit its political heart, would demonstrate remarkable planning, luck, daring, and a surprising capability. Even so, General Zaluzhny, head of Ukraine's armed forces, has spoken explicitly of the need for Ukraine to probe Russia's remoteness and its distant center of gravity, which allows Russian citizens to not perceive the losses, failures, and most importantly, the cost of this war. Ukraine has successfully used drones to attack other highly guarded targets inside Russia, including two desperate strikes in December on the Engels Air Base that lies 600 kilometers inside the country and is home to Russia's nuclear-capable bombers. Quote, Ukraine has shown it can take off-the-shelf products, scale them, and then use them to creative and lethal effect, a senior Western defense official said. Ukraine's previous attacks using unmanned vehicles also show how hard it can be to defend against those strikes. Even so, analysts said the small size of the explosion suggested that it was a Ukrainian attack, that if it was a Ukrainian attack, its purpose was purely symbolic and demonstrative. Could Ukraine have pulled this off? Michael Coffin, director of the Russia Studies program at CNA, believed the most likely explanation was that the operation was at the very least orchestrated by Ukraine. The simplest explanation is exactly what it looks like, he said, with the objective of demonstrating that Russia was vulnerable and diminishing the Kremlin's power. So there you have the Financial Times openly admitting that most likely this was done by Ukraine. Now, Peskov, he said that the Russian government considers this attack on the Kremlin to have been done by Ukraine, but also by Washington. That is what Peskov said. Washington is behind the attack on the Kremlin. That is a quote from the Kremlin press secretary. He also said that Moscow is considering a variety of options for retaliation. And in difficult, extreme situations, Putin is always cool and calm and gives precise and clear orders. Now, the Biden White House, they have said that they are not behind this drone strike, this terrorist act, this attempted assassination of Russian President Vladimir Putin. And in my opinion, this absolutely was an assassination attempt on the Russian president, on the head of state. I don't care if it's a drone or a pistol or a knife or a baseball bat. I don't care if it's symbolic, if it's just there to push forward a narrative or to prove some sort of point. Allegedly Ukraine officials, they sent a weapon into the Kremlin to attack the place of residence and business of the Russian head of state. Even if it hit the flagpole or it hit the roof and it did minimal damage, the fact that a weapon was launched into the Kremlin is an assassination attempt. Because we've had people like Lindsey Graham, for example, a very, very high-level U.S. Senator, right? Lindsey Graham, very high level. He has been calling for the assassination of Vladimir Putin for a while now. Multiple times he is on record calling for the assassination of the Russian president. And we've had Podolyak and Zelensky and EU officials. They've all in one way or another called for someone or some entity or somebody to take Putin out, right? We've moved from just rhetoric, these people calling for something to happen to Putin. We've moved from rhetoric to now an actual physical action. So this is a big deal. It really is a big deal. This is not rhetoric anymore. We've actually now had someone attempt to do this. Even if it was symbolic, even if they knew there was 0.001% chance that they would succeed in getting to Putin, it doesn't matter. Someone decided to take the rhetoric and the words and turn it into a real attempt. And to me, that's all you need to classify this as an assassination attempt. What if the drone had bio or chemical weapons or something like that? I mean, I don't know. What if the drone veered off course, or when the Russians jammed it electronically, what if the drone somehow just hit like Red Square or some of the cafes or some people who are, walking around Red Square? There's a lot of people always walking around Red Square. What if the drone kind of crashed there and you had innocent people get killed or injured by this drone? I mean, a whole lot of things could have happened. in this scenario. Anyway, the White House, they are denying that they had anything to do with this. The U.S. has banned Ukraine from hitting Russia, said White House advisor John Kirby. This is what he told MSNBC. Washington does not allow Kiev to strike outside of its own state borders, including Russian territory. Let me read that again. The U.S. has banned Ukraine from hitting Russia, said White House advisor John Kirby. Washington does not allow Kiev to strike outside of its own state borders, including Russian territory. Kirby called Russia's accusations that it was the United States that instructed Kiev to carry out the drone attack ridiculous. Now, this is such an interesting statement from Kirby because, on the one hand, he acknowledges that the Biden White House gives the orders to the Zelensky regime and the Ukraine military. I mean, he says it right here in this statement. He says Washington told the Ukraine military, the Zelensky regime, not to strike at Russia, not to strike at Russian territory. The U.S. gave an order to the Zelensky regime. The U.S. banned Ukraine from hitting Russia. That is a direct quote from Kirby. So on the one hand, in this MSNBC interview, this statement from Kirby, he is admitting that the United States, contrary to their statements of we are not a party to this war, which they continuously say, he is saying in this statement that the U.S. absolutely gives the orders to Ukraine. And in this instance, the U.S. specifically told Ukraine, you are not to hit Russian territory. That is what Kirby is saying. On the other hand, if this is indeed true, if the U.S. does give the order and has given the order to Ukraine not to hit Russian territory, and we find out that Ukraine was indeed behind this drone strike, then that means that the Ukraine military is not following the U.S.'s orders. So if you're Russia and you've come to understand that the U.S. is giving the orders, but the Ukraine military or forces in Ukraine are not following the U.S.'s orders, what do? What actions do you take? Has the Zelensky regime gone rogue? Are there elements in Ukraine that have gone rogue? Are they taking matters into their own hands? Is the U.S. really behind these attacks and Kirby is just BSing? He's just providing cover for other agencies or officials who are indeed instructing Ukraine to hit Russian territory. I mean, if you're Russia, what do you make from this statement by Kirby? It's a very interesting statement from Kirby, a very interesting statement, and Russia, they're going to read what Kirby said in this statement. They're going to listen to what he said, and I think the Russian government is going to say, you know what, Ukraine is either, the Ukraine command is either not listening to the U.S. and this conflict in Ukraine is now unable, it's unmanageable. It's impossible to contain this conflict because Ukraine is now taking a conflict that all of these forces have been trying to manage and contain, and now Ukraine is moving this conflict to Russian territory. And so if you're Russia, you say, okay, we're going to have to do something, or Kirby is BSing, and the U.S. is really directing Ukraine to strike at Russia. And what do you do in that instance? I don't know. Anyway, Joseph Burrell, he also made an interesting comment with this drone strike. He said that he had heard Ukrainian President Zelensky's denial that his country was involved in the incident, which took place in the early hours of Wednesday morning. This is what Zelensky said, and this is what I have to say. That is what Burrell stated. And then Burrell called on Russia not to use this alleged attack as an excuse to continue the escalation of the war, adding that the EU was concerned about this potential scenario. So you see, the European Union is pouring weapons money, weapons, ammunition into Ukraine so that they can continue this war with Russia so that Ukraine is escalating. But Burrell doesn't want Russia to use this attack on the head of state so that Russia can escalate. That is how Burrell sees things. It's okay for the EU to escalate, but it's not okay for Russia to escalate after an attempt has been made on the life of the Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev. He responded to Burrell and said, Burrell has spoken out against using the attack on the Kremlin for possible future escalation of the conflict. It is exactly to the escalation of the conflict it will lead. The terrorist attack committed by the Kiev authorities, guided by the US and approved by the EU leadership. This is just what Washington and many dumbheads in Brussels want. So Dmitry Medvedev, he took it a step further, actually. And he doesn't only blame Washington and Ukraine. He actually says that the EU is also behind this. We are entering very, very dangerous times, everybody. Very dangerous times. I feel like we've crossed many red lines. You know, the EU is diverting. This is from the Telegraph. The EU is diverting building funds, 2 billion euros in building funds, infrastructure funds, so that they can buy weapons for Ukraine. The EU doesn't want this conflict to wrap up. The leaders of the European Union, they don't want this conflict to end. So the European Union is going to actually divert 2 billion in funds that are meant for infrastructure to build roads and schools and hospitals. They're going to take this money and they're going to divert it so that they can buy ammunition for Ukraine. They want to continue this war. The European Union, they want this war to go on. That is clear. Burrell, he actually said as much in an interview. He said the EU would like to spend its money on improving the well-being of citizens, on hospitals and schools, but the EU has no choice. We must spend all available money on protecting Ukraine. We have no choice. We must spend all available money on protecting Ukraine.
And if we don't support Ukraine, Ukraine will fall in a matter of days. So yes, I would prefer to spend this money increasing the well-being of the people, hospitals, schools, the cities, as the mayor is asking for, but we don't have the choice.
So my question to Jungle Joseph and all the EU officials is this: is Ukraine part of the European Union? Is it an EU member? The answer is no. So then why should 2 billion euros, which is meant to go to infrastructure, to roads and schools and hospitals and all of these things, why should this money be diverted away from infrastructure and be used to buy weapons for Ukraine? Why? Why should this money be given to a country that's not a member of the European Union? This is EU taxpayer money. Why should this money that is going to be used to better the lives of citizens of the European Union, money that they've given, that they've paid for with their taxes, why should this money be diverted to buy weapons for a country that's not a member of the European Union? The answer, in my opinion, is very simple: because the EU is going to do everything in their power to keep this war going. Everything in their power to keep this war going. They have no interest whatsoever to end this conflict. From what I understand, Italy has been completely demilitarized. I mean, Italy is like, we are out of ammunition. We have no more ammunition left. And they're now asking the United States to provide them with like weapons and ammunition because they gave it all away to Ukraine. Good job, Maloney. Good job, Maloney. You're doing a really, really good job there. Man, oh man. Anyway, let's do a clown world and we'll wrap this this video up. And in this clown world, let's go to The Hague, where Zelensky was hiding out in Finland, and then he went to the Netherlands, and he was hiding out there because he didn't want the Russians to retaliate against him. So he was put on a plane and taken to Finland and then to the Netherlands. And while in the Netherlands, he visited The Hague and he gave a speech. And in this speech, the comedian known as Zelensky, the actor and comedian known as Zelensky, decided to put on a show. And I'm going to play a video for everybody where the actor comedian Zelensky delivers a line that he thought would get a ton of laughs. Keep in mind, this is Zelensky performing at The Hague, looking to get some laughs with this line. And the line that he throws out there in his speech is, everyone wants to see a different Vladimir at The Hague. And you'll see in the video, Zelensky, he delivers this line, and he pauses, he waits for some people to laugh. One person, it seems like one or two people listening to the speech actually do kind of chuckle. They let out a bit of a laugh or a clap. And that was it. And you can see that Zelensky is disappointed because in his mind, this line, this joke fell flat. It didn't deliver the applause and laughter that he was hoping it would deliver. And you can see in his face, his facial expression, that he's disappointed that he didn't get the laugh that he was hoping for. This is Zelensky. This is the person that the European Union wants to give 2 billion euros to in ammunition. This is the person that Maloney has completely emptied out Italy's weapon stockpiles for. He's in The Hague trying to crack jokes. Anyway, here's the video. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to sign out for this afternoon. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and we are also on Telegram. And go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.
Of course, we all want to see different Vladimir here in The Hague.